Hi, good evening. This is Saturday, the 31st of November 2020. We're still in section one of the lockdown. There's still the economy is shaking really badly. And I need to report on some of the labor law and labor industrial relations that we're experiencing in South Africa at the moment. We've had an interesting week in that we've had the medium-term budget speech by Minister of Finance Tito Mboweni. There's been a real labour issue arising out of that ministerial announcements in Parliament. We are also experiencing real problems because of some of those announcements, and I want to expand a little bit on some of the shocking revelations that we've seen in the Parliament over this past week. So thank you once again for tuning in to the Democratic Alliance Labour Report. I'm Michael Bagram, the Labour spokesperson for the Democratic Alliance. As the Democratic Alliance goes into its elective conference, internal elective conference, we're obviously very much keeping our eye on the economy. We're watching what's going on in South Africa. And as you will read and hear about the conference at a later stage, one of the biggest worries that the Democratic Alliance has is how are we going to move into this next period after COVID-19 and the lockdown. How are we going to move in? How are we going to save the economy, get jobs going again, and somehow get back to some normality? The country has been destroyed by an ANC lockdown. The country is going to take at least a decade to come right. And yet we have a very upbeat and strong DA leadership that's going to take us into this future. I'm very excited about it because I, like every other South African, am affected by this very weak and struggling economy. Well, to get back to the medium-term budget speech that took place during this last week, Minister Tito Mboweni made some sort of announcement. The announcements were weak, they were puerile, and unfortunately don't take us anywhere any much further at all. There was no ways in which he was going to try and somehow concentrate on building up jobs. And the only real answer he could give us where he could try and save some money was to somehow put a ceiling, a lid on wage increases for the civil servants. Now you will know, and everyone will remember, that there is an ongoing dispute between COSATU and in fact SAFTU, Mr. Vavi, with the government. Just to remind you that our government has an agreement, a tripartite agreement. The ANC, COSATU, and the Communist Party have a tripartite agreement whereby they are going to work together for electoral success. They're looking at the statement, I think it was made by Kwame Nkrumah, "Seek ye the political kingdom and all else shall follow." Well, what they've done is that the ANC has sought the political kingdom, and they're making hay while the sun shines. I keep hearing the remark from backbenchers in the ANC, "It's now our time to eat." A horrific statement, because unfortunately it's the politicians that are eating and the workers are suffering. In fact, they don't have work, which is horrific to hear. But what Tito Mboweni said in this medium-term budget is something even more disturbing. And that is, he is going to place a hold on any increases, a blanket hold on any increases to the civil servants. Now, this is one of the blanket ideas that comes out of a thoughtless process. We know, for instance, that policemen, nurses, teachers, those three vital professions, are not earning very much. We know that they stuck their necks out. They were at the forefront of the COVID-19 effort. Those three parts of the civil servants were our heroes, the knights in shining armor. Now what they're hearing is they're not going to get any increases for the next 3 years. Now, I don't understand it, but somehow the Minister of Employment and Labour doesn't seem to have spoken to Tito Mboweni. Now, Tito Mboweni himself was a Minister of Labour under Mandela's government. And then he stuck up very strongly for the Labour. Now what's happening? Now we're seeing something horrific. We're seeing the very meagre salaries of those three professions being threatened. Now let me just take you back a little bit, just a short bit, and to know that in 2018 the government entered into negotiations with COSATU and the big unions in the civil service, in particular NAHAWU, the Health Workers Union, and they came to a 3-year agreement of increases. That was supposed to be kicked in 2019, and 2020 and 2021 was going to be the new year for the negotiations. So at the end of 2018, that agreement was struck. The first increase was given. It's a 3-year agreement. At the end of 2019, the government honoured the increases. They couldn't afford it. They certainly couldn't afford it, and the civil service is overstacked with people. You have 20 people watching the one do the job. I'm not talking about nurses, policemen. I'm certainly not talking about teachers. But what I am talking about is the average civil servant, which is the pen pusher. And unfortunately, they have had major increases over the last 10 years. And the civil service has grown out of all proportion. They're just overstaffed. That's the bottom line, just overstaffed. And we know that all the state-owned enterprises are all overstaffed and all overeating, and they're all, unfortunately, becoming redundant. Like SAA, for instance, shouldn't be existing at all, but the minister saw his way clear to giving them a 10.5 billion rand when he can't afford to give our teachers an increase. It sounds ludicrous. Policemen on the beat, putting their lives at risk, can't get an increase because we had to pay SAA. Anyway, that issue, because the third year they didn't get. In April 2020, that increase, although promised and signed, didn't come to the civil servants. That's going to court. We don't know the answer to this. I suspect government might come out second best. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. But our Minister of Labour obviously is watching this closely, and he must have been very closely watching the medium-term budget speech from his brother minister, Tito Mboweni. Tito Mboweni then announced that he's going to put a ceiling on any further increases for the next 3 years. Now, I'm not sure if they never speak to each other, because we know that there is a bargaining council. We know that there are trade unions that are in bed with the ANC. But now they've angered each other. They've fallen out of bed. Maybe a good thing that they've fallen out of bed, because we've always seen COSATU wagging government. It's like the tail wagging the dog. I know what I'm telling you sounds like I'm sitting in Alice in Wonderland. And I know that when Alice looked at the caterpillar sitting on the mushroom, Alice had to have some inane questions. Well, the questions from me are inane. Does the Minister of Finance not know that there's annual negotiations, that they enter into negotiations for a 3-year period? Is he throwing out wage negotiations altogether? Is he negating collective bargaining? Is that going to be thrown out of our law? Well, of course not. We still have collective bargaining. We still have the Labour Relations Act. The minister just took a decision that he's going to have a blanket ban on increases. Now, I understand where he's coming from in terms of having to save the money, but he should rather look at the overstaffing. He should rather look at the senior employees within the civil service that are sometimes earning 1,000% more than what they started 6 years ago. All I'm saying is this is trouble, big trouble. When are we going to get the mother of all strikes? Well, let's watch this space. I will report back to you. This is Michael Bagram reporting to you from the Democratic Alliance. I'm the Labour spokesperson. It's Saturday, the 31st of November, 2020. Thank you very much.